Alright, so we're going to be going over the basic tools that we'll be using to set up our artwork for print media. Starting with File, New. We're going to go ahead and name our document Poster 001. Number of artboards 1. Width. Let's go ahead and switch that. So here in the orientation, I'm going to click it to where it's going to be more vertically based than horizontally based. And then my units, inches. Okay. So zooming out a little bit so I can see the artboard, we have the main selector tool, we have the pen tool, we have the shape tool, and we have our fill and stroke. Over here in our layers panel, we have layer 1. So for this tutorial, I'm going to be also using the trace function. So let's go ahead and go File, Place, and here on my desktop I have the image that I want to use. I'm going to click Paste here. Just click in there. So it's larger than my artboard. So what I'm going to do, holding down Shift and the corner here, I'm going to scale it down to where it fits within that space. I'm just going to leave it right there for now. So this is my main selector tool. And this is going to be the tool that you use for selecting an object as a whole. Now if you look on my layers panel here, we have layer 1 and then we can see our image. I'm going to click once, twice. Okay, and now I can change the name of this. So I'm going to change it to Photo. All right, and making a new layer using this Create New Layer tool, I'm actually going to start working on this layer too. I'm going to click twice in there. I'm going to name it Decoration. Okay, now I don't want to see this for the moment, so I'm going to toggle this off. Then I'm going to click to select to make sure that I'm working on this layer. And using the pen tool, I'm just going to start drawing some shapes. Now if I want this to be a straight line, I just hold down my Shift key. Just start plotting some points. Again, I'm holding that Shift key to keep everything straight. Now if you notice, if I go over here, you'll see a circle by that pen tool. That gives me the option to close the path. So I actually don't even need to be close. I can hit Enter. No, I guess I can't. Okay, so now I have the path closed. Alright, so here you see this shape, and it has a black line and a white fill. If I wanted to switch that, I could click this Swap Fill and Stroke, or shortcut Shift X to switch. I can also change the thickness of the stroke here in my stroke panel. If I want to change the variation, again, I'm in the Windows panel. If there's something that you're not seeing, make sure it's selected here, checked in this Windows panel. Click on Stroke. Now I'm going to drag this up to where I can see it and actually move it over here. I'm going to turn that off for the moment. So I can actually make this a dashed line. Change the width and actually change the variation in the gap. So I can make this as irregular as I want. Okay. So another option that you have here in the stroke window is where you align the stroke. Now, since we're dashed, it's not going to allow us to do that. So I'm going to undash the line And just kind of playing around with this, you can see where the stroke is in relation to the shape. So that looks kind of okay. Another thing using this main selection tool is I can rescale that shape I've created. Now let's say that I want to modify a point. If I want to modify one point, I would go to this direct select tool. And from there I can drag it. From there I can also round it. Okay, so that looks kind of weird, but it also kind of looks a little bit cool. I don't know, I may stick with it. We have another option here if you don't want to plot out with the pen tool. Using your shape tool, now click and hold to get the different types of shapes. I'm going to go with this ellipse tool. And let's say that I want this to be the same height as width. Holding down my shift key, it scales that to be proportional. Now if you notice that this is blocking out the line, that's because my fill is white. If I want to see the line, then I can click None. And there I can see the two objects. Using this caret down, I can actually see the paths separate in my layers palette. I can see which one's on top and which one's on bottom. Now this comes in handy while using my Pathfinder tool, and again, if you can't find that, that would be in your window, and just make sure that it has the check beside it. So selecting those two, I'm going to play around and show the different options. So if I click this Unite tool, it combines the two objects. I'm going to Command Z to go back to where we were, selecting both of them again using this Direct Select tool. I'm going to minus the front. Okay. So that cuts out a notch. Command Z to undo. I'm going to select both of them. Now this gives you the intersecting points between the two shapes, this shape here. Selecting both of them again, it subtracts that. But you can't see that because it has grouped them. So I'm going to Command Z. And let's say I do want to have this cut out of this shape. I'm going to select them both, minus front, and there we have that. But say I still wanted that initial shape. I'm going to Command Z, select it, Command C to copy it, select them both, minus. Now say I want to put this back exactly where it was, I'm going to Command F. Now if I wanted to, I'm going to Command Z a little bit. If I want to put this object behind, a shortcut for that would be Command X to cut it. Again, that's Command X, and Command B. So if we want an object in front of another object, we go Command F. If we want the object behind, Command B. So again, I'm going to Command X this, Command F to put it in front, and there we have the two shapes. I'm going to go back to my tools here. I'm going to select the rectangle tool. I'm going to make, holding down Shift, a regular rectangle. I want to round these points. So I'm going to actually just select all of them so I can get that rounded edge. Okay, so say I want this object to be smaller. Using the Direct Select tool, I'm going to select it and scale down. Oops. If I don't want to grab this object, I'll go into my Layers panel and actually hit Locked. And I can always unlock it from here too. Holding it from the center there. Actually going to make it a little bit smaller. So you can see when I mouse over this left corner, actually any of them, you get a switch in your cursor, a scale switch. So scale it there. And now it's looking a little too rounded, so I'm going to push that back out. Grabbing it from the center, I'm going to line it up and holding Alt. Now you see I get this second ghost trail by my cursor, and I'm going to drag down, then click Shift, and I have my second box created. Alt, drag, Shift, third box created. And say I want these to all be aligned the same distance in their height. I'm going to select all of them. Bringing up that alignment window, I'm going to go Window Align. You can see Distribute Objects, but it doesn't have everything that I want. So I'm going to go Show Options. Again, that's in this caret down with the grid stack. Now, I'm going to use this one, Vertical Distribute Space. Okay. Let me move this window over so you can see what just happened. Okay. Actually, I'm going to move this around so you can get a better idea of what's happening. Hit it again, and you see it moves it there. Now, let's say that for our poster, we're going to have multiple colors. Say I would like for this color. Oh, I locked it. Okay, so going back into decoration, I'm going to unlock it, select. I'm going to make this one red. I'm going to make these items yellow. And I'm going to turn off the stroke. So I'm going to click this to bring it in front and select none. And I want this one to not have a stroke either. So if I were to just click none right now, it would cancel out the fill color. So I want to click this, click off of the stroke. Let's say for this one we want this to be, I'm going to use the eyedropper tool and just go ahead and make it the yellow that I've already assigned the other colors. Now, let's say that we're making our poster. We would want to have these yellow shapes that are in front. We would want them to have a bleed. So I'm going to go Command X, create a new layer, layer this yellow. Command F, and now it's in front. And I'm going to drag this fill over my stroke area and bump that down to 0.5. Now the reason why we do this is when we're going to line up the screens, we want to have a little bit of a bleed going over top of the red so that way there's no white showing through. So going back to our image, and I turned off these layers using the visibility. Going back to this image, I'm going to show you how to use your image trace tool. So first you select your image, and you see you have different tracing results. You have different modes. You have a color, grayscale, black and white. For t-shirt printing, you want to do black and white. I want to preview my changes, so I'm going to click this preview, and I'm going to click OK here. Now, let's say that we're not as happy with those results. I'm going to toggle Advanced down and play with the levels here. I'm going to take the noise down to 0, or 1 is the lowest. I'm going to make the corners more. I'm going to see if the path, changing the path amount, varies anything. Also important, ignore white. Make sure that this is selected. That eliminates all these tiny white shapes. Let's see if taking the threshold down, bumping it back up. Okay, let's say that we're happy with this, but I'm not happy that her hand is now eliminated from the photo. So I'm going to go ahead and Command Z until I get back to that photo. I could just go ahead and place the photo back in, which is what a sane person would do, but I'm just going to Command Z until we get back to that original photo. Okay. So before we get started with this, I want to give myself a backup in case I'm unhappy with the results of the image trace. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the image, Command C that image, create a new layer, Command F, and I put it back on that one. So what I really needed to do, I'm just going to hit delete for that, is make sure that I was selected on the right layer, and to make double sure, I turn off the visibility of that bottom layer. Command F, I'm going to turn this one off. I'm going to select this image, click Preview, click OK here, click Ignore White, because I don't want any of the small white specks to show up. I'm going to adjust my paths to high, corners to more, and make sure that the noise is down to the lowest possible setting, which is 1. So I'm going to make the threshold a little bit less. I can either drag this selection tool, or I can actually type in the number value that I want. Okay, I'm most happy with this result, but I'm not happy that the hands are no longer visible. So what I'm going to do is lock this layer. Click and drag this other layer behind it. Toggle it to be visible. And here I see some of the image that's been taken out from the image trace that I want to add back in. So I'm going to click the image itself, Command 2 to lock it, or I can click this arrow down and make sure that the image is locked here. Now using my magnifying tool, I want to zoom into this area. I'm going to zoom here. Actually going to X out of that. Using my pen tool, I'm going to draw the line around her hand. Now as you see, as I'm drawing this, I'm getting these 2 anchor points. As I'm drawing this, I'm getting 2 curve tools with my anchor points. I click and hold to kind of craft that line the way that I want it to be. And if you notice, it's like making a yellow shape, which is a little bit distracting at the moment, so I'm going to switch it within the next click. So I'm going to hit enter or return, and I have this line created here. Click in the default fill and stroke. I'm then going to bring the fill to the forefront, click none, and there I just have the line. Now I'm going to continue that path, and I just left off here. I'm going to drag to make that nice curve. Click and drag. And click and drag. I'm just tracing the edges of the hand. Clicking and dragging my way along. And I hit enter when I'm finished. And I would do the same thing for the other hand. Now let's say that we want to have, what I'm going to do too is turn off the actual image so I just see my line art for the moment. I'm going to create a new layer, and this is going to be my text layer. Using my type tool, click an area where I want to make some text. I'm going to command plus to zoom in quickly. I could also have used my magnifying tool. Now using my selection tool, I'm going to stretch this out. Go back to my type tool, select, and here I can see my character name. Say I want to do let's do Times for right now, even though I'd never use that font. Now, let's say that I'm happy with this. If I send this to another person, and I want to make sure that the font is visible on their machine, I select it, I go Type, Create Outlines. Now, the added benefit of doing this, it not only preserves your text shape, you can also then go in with your Direct Select tool and modify the anchor points of the text. So if I want to see everything in relation, it looks kind of jumbled. So what I'm going to do is move this down. And since it's below, you'll notice I can't see it. So I'm going to drag it to the top of the layers palette and actually put it in the yellow here. I'm going to drag it again. And now it's on top. Now I have these other items that I want to be behind this other image. So I'm going to select them from the layers palette and actually drag them below. So if I wanted to even take this a step further, I'm just going to go ahead and lock these two items. And I'm going to lock that one too. I'm going to unlock and make sure that I'm selected on this layer. Using my magnifying tool, I'm going to zoom in. And let's say that I want to paint her face. I'm going to not do that. I'm going to select it, go Object, Live Paint, Gap Options. Just going to make it large. Now I'm using my Live Paint Bucket tool. And if you see, I have a red on one side, black in the middle, and white at the end. I'm going to carry it over using my left arrow tool and have white to be my fill. I'm going to click and see, cannot be converted. Okay, so let's see if we can convert it now that we've changed our gaps. So Object, nope, still can't do it. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, Image, Expand. Now we're going to be able to work with that. So Object, Expand, clicking this area. I'm going to go Live Paint again and Make. Going back to this Live Paint Bucket tool, I'm going to, because I don't have the options anymore, I double click on this swatch tool, click white, and I'm going to click in here, and that made her face white. So I want to just click in the areas that I want to make white. And I'm going to Command minus to zoom out to see the whole thing. It's starting to look somewhere where we want it to be. So if we were to use this for printing, we would have to have a plate that had where the black ink goes on the screen, where the red ink goes on the screen, and the yellow ink. So that would be 3 separate screens. So I'm going to Object, Ungroup, Object, Expand, and that's going to expand all these items that we traced. Click there, Object, Ungroup. Still, I know that everything isn't ungrouped because I have this question mark. See if we do one more expand, if that'll do it. Okay, so now we have a black swatch. Now, if I want to select everything that's black, I'm going to select Same, Fill Color, and that selects everything that's black. Now, the reason why it didn't select the adding machine is because our text layer is locked. So if I unlock that, go back, select Same, Fill Color, still doesn't do it. So that means that our text is actually a different color. So when I click here, you notice I get this number. I want it to be a true black. I'm going to drag it down to all zeros. Click OK. Now let's see if it will select. No. Interesting. I'm going to double click in there. We have all zeros. Okay, I'm going to actually click this black swatch to see if that gives us the result. Select Same, Fill Color. I'm going to click the black swatch for this one as well. Select same fill color, and now we have everything. Now the reason why that this is important is because when you go to print your posters, the printer needs to register the same color, or else everything will not go on your printed plate. So I'm actually going to Command X and take the text off of its own layer and put it on this layer that says photo, which I'm going to double click to rename. I'm going to delete this layer by selecting it and hitting the trash can. While on this layer, Command F to bring the text back. Since we no longer need this layer, I'm going to delete that. So now we have all of our black ink on one layer, all of our yellow ink for one layer, and all of our red ink for one layer. So here we have a situation where we have lost this line, which isn't good. Where this image is actually blocking out some of the yellow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this image, I'm going to Command C, turn off the visibility, click onto this layer, Command F, and I'm going to select these two items, minus front, and that's going to cut out everything here. So that way when we go to that yellow plate, it looks like this as opposed to that full circle that it would have before. So just to make sure that we're on the same page, I'm going to Command Z to show you the difference. So before I place this image here, the yellow plate would have looked like this. Now we also have overlap on this red. So I'm going to Command C, click to make sure I'm on this layer, turn off my other layers, Command F, select both items, trim, and now all the plates. Oh, there's one more thing that I left off. I left off this adding machine. Command C, go back to that red plate, Command F, select both and minus. And we have weirdness here. We have, it just goes to one dot. Now what happened? So Command Z, the problem is that we have all these tiny little shapes in with this larger shape, and we just want to cut out from this larger shape. So I'm going to select everything here and unite it. And now I'm going to select both items and trim, and I still get this issue. So I'm going to Command Z, go Object, Compound Path, Make, and see if this resolves our issue. Selecting both, trim, now we have the result we want. So if we were to print this at this moment, we would have a bleed on our yellow plate. Let's go ahead and make a bleed on our black plate as well. So you see I get this question mark. I'm going to go back to the black here to make sure, oh, and that's why. Because we have this white shape here that we want to preserve. So I'm going to select, same, fill color, and drag the black over the stroke line here. Bump this down to 0.5. And now I have bleeds on 2 of the plates. I'm going to now File, Save As, and we're going to save this as a PDF, which will preserve my layers and be universally opened on all devices. I'm going to actually save this as O2 underscore print ready. Save. I'm going to get all of these options. I'm just going to click through them for a moment. I don't want it compressed. I don't want any security on it because I'm going to be sending it. I'm going to save PDF. And now you're ready. You're ready to go print.